Guilt and shame. I know we talked about this a little bit, but I just cannot overstate how much this affects everybody's life. Okay? We are all programmed for this guilt and shame thing. There's probably someone in your life that basically has a PhD in guilt and guilt hooking and hooking your guilt. And you have to get very clear on this because you're probably not even making an error. You know, I mentioned this in my first breakup. Well, like most breakups go like that. The one person breaks up with the other person. The breakup-er sees the sad look in their eyes, feels really guilty, waits a few days, and then feels like garbage. Whether what happens after that is up to them. But the thing is, not the reality is, but the thing is, why did they feel guilty? They didn't make an error. They did the right thing. The right thing was not to continue a relationship that they didn't want to be in, right? Why would you stay in a relationship that you don't want to be in? That doesn't make any sense. But then they felt really guilty about it. Why? It wasn't their responsibility to make them feel good about something that is sad. It's the end of a relationship. It's sad. It's supposed to be sad. Why would you feel guilty about that? Someone being sad when you didn't make the error. You see how like this, and then this turns into this really nasty thing that we do on ourselves. And most of the time people don't make an error. They just feel the guilt. And the reality is, like, what is it helping to self-victimize? What's it help to put that guilt on you? Because you're the only one doing it. What's it help to put your focus on this guilt, like, oh, I should feel this guilt, and then feeling it? And what's it helping? How's it serving you? You know, what's it helping to focus on being a victim? Okay, this is the thing that you really got to pull back from. That's very, very hard to stay objective on. But what's it going to help? How is it serving you to feel guilty about something that you have no responsibility for? How is it helping to feel guilty for something that isn't something that somebody else should feel good about? How is it helping to feel guilty for a situation when you didn't make an error? Now, I know that some people get into there's some different perspectives on guilt, and that, well, if you feel guilty, then you probably shouldn't have done the thing in the first place. Well, is that accurate? And that some people say there's a difference between shame and guilt. I think that you could go there. I think it'd be very easy to go there, but I still think that you're focusing on something that you don't need to feel if you didn't make the error. Now, if you did make the error, now we're looking at something different. What's the point of feeling guilt over an error? There's no point there. Learn. Acknowledge the error, learn, move on. Okay, learn the thing. What do you need to learn? You don't need to feel guilty for it. That's a waste of time. That's a waste of effort. That's a waste of focus. That's a waste of energy. Okay, you need to focus on the error. What you learn, not focus on the error. You need to acknowledge the error, focus on what you need to learn from the error, and then move on. That's not a time for guilt or shame either. So I don't get along with the whole notion that there's a difference between guilt and shame. I think that we use these fairly interchangeably, and it kind of depends on how you're filling the container labeled guilt and shame. But these are not helping to do anything except for self-victimize. It's a way for us to give ourselves this to like anoint ourselves with this bullshit that isn't ours to be anointing ourselves with. You didn't do anything wrong, and even if you did do something wrong, acknowledge, learn, move on. Do you see? Don't sit here in this guilt and shame stuff, putting your focus towards it. If you do, you waste the time, you waste the energy, you waste the effort, and you waste the focus that could have been had on doing something or being something or having something that you want to get to in your life, and for those that you care about, and for all the things that make you great, and of all the great stuff. So guilt and shame, easy place to put your focus, and all it is a fancy way to justify feeling like a victim, which is very easy to do. We're taught to do that in our world today, and I highly encourage you to confront the beast here. You do not need to feel guilt or shame at any point, any moment, ever. Because if you did make an error, acknowledge, learn, move on. If you didn't make an error, what do you have to feel guilty or shameful about? Hey, that's guilt and shame. Next video is going to get into more of the fears of not being enough, so that we can get more clear on what these are and how we can get back to them. With the guilt and the shame, you do the same thing. You acknowledge the error. Am I going to feel, you acknowledge that you are afraid. Mess that one up. You acknowledge you're afraid. Is this reasonable or unreasonable? It's obviously unreasonable, okay? But you got to get to that point. Now, are you enough to do your absolute gut-wrenching best in this moment? Refocus and get all in right here, right now.